you are able to see a question on your screen, which is, are you looking to reposition yourself as a leader within the development sector? So as we get more attendees kind of settled into today's session, I'd like you to start thinking about this question, and I want you to ask yourself this question. If you get to the conclusion and the answer is yes, then you've come to the right place. Today, we're going to be providing you with an insight in our Master of Leadership for Development, an online part-time degree programme delivered in partnership with the University of Melbourne. This degree programme, one of the aims is for people looking to reposition themselves as a leader within the development sector. So if you're sat there thinking, yes, this is me, then like I said, you've come to the right place, and I hope you find today insightful. So without further ado, I'm going to kickstart the session today. So as I mentioned, we are going to provide you with an insight or a deep dive into the Master of Leadership for Development, a part-time online degree programme delivered in partnership with the University of Melbourne. It's also a degree programme and a course which focuses on the practical skills, global connections and collaborative outlook needed to make a real difference within the development world. So I'm joined by two key academics today in the delivery of the Master of Leadership for Development. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves in a little bit. Both of them, Jaco and Jeff, are experts within their areas of interest, and they're going to be kind of delivering and providing you with an insight into this degree programme, the Master of Leadership for Development. So just a bit of an introduction into who I am. My name is Daisy James, and I am the course advisor for the Master of Leadership for Development. My role, and I'm based here at the University of Manchester, is to provide students with an insight into the degree programme, answer any questions that you may have about the degree programme, and talk you through the application process. My role as well is to kind of understand your eligibility and understand your background, so I can support you in really taking the next steps with both the University of Manchester and University of Melbourne. My contact details will be at the bottom of each screen and each slide today. If you've got queries, questions about this degree programme, or you want to talk to me about your background and eligibility, please feel free to get in touch with me directly, and we can set up a Zoom consultation and hopefully go on to take the next steps together. One thing I'd want to mention for those of you who are listening to today's webinar live, please utilise the chat functionality so we can kind of get to know you a little bit. Please let me know where you're tuning in from. It's always great to kind of understand more about our attendees. So please don't feel scared, and please do kind of utilize that. We'd love to kind of get to know you and make this session, like what our degree program is, collaborative. So without further ado, Jaco, Jeff, I'm going to hand it over to you two to kind of introduce yourself. Jaco, I'll come to you first.
Thanks, Daisy, and hello to everyone. It is always a fantastic opportunity for us to look forward to connect with potential students of ours that we may have the privilege of walking alongside the journey of doing a master's at some point in time. And so I'm Jaco Renken, and I'm one of the original starters of this particular course. It has started quite a couple of years ago with these ideas and vision and ambition, with a realization that there's something in the development sector that is somehow amiss at this point in time. And we had a dream to develop a master's program that revolves around leadership, particularly in the development sector. And this dream has come to realization with our partners in Melbourne. And my particular background is quite diverse. My native tribe is actually not a social scientist, but I come from a more technological background. But what is interesting is that I've, through my career, worked in public sector, in government organizations for many, many years. I've also started up and worked in quite a few non-government organizations, civil society-based organizations, and I've also dipped my toe into the business sector a couple of times in my life, and had a bird's eye view of leadership and managerial practice across different countries, across different contexts, and in different sectors. And this just emphasize this dream, this vision of empowering students around the world, colleagues, practitioners within the development sector, and those who wish to move into the sector with some of the skills that's going to really help you and set you up to make a difference. And in the development sector, that difference is to make the world a better place. Over to you, Jeff.
Great, thank you so much, Jaco, and thank you, Daisy, as well. My name is Jeff Garmany. I'm officially Senior Lecturer of Latin American Studies at the University of Melbourne. And as you can see here, I'm the Deputy Course Director. This means officially I'm sort of subbing in for my colleague, Vicky Schubert, this semester, as she's the normal course director of this program. But the reason that I'm subbing in for her is because I am also the course director for the Masters of Development Studies at the University of Melbourne. And I joined Melbourne in 2019. Before then, I was actually at King's College London, where I was in the Department of Geography and the King's Brazil Institute. I was also an associate of the Department of International Development there at King's. A little bit unlike Jaco, my background is actually sort of purely academic. I've worked and trained in geography, specifically in development and political and urban geography. And all of my research over the years actually comes from Brazil, thinking specifically about questions of urban and political development, both in northeastern Brazil and more recently in the southeast of Brazil. So again, it's a real pleasure to be a part of this course, to learn with my colleagues on the program and to learn with you as well. And I look forward to getting to know some of you as a part of this program right here, and also to have sort of an ongoing academic relationship in the years to come.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jaco. It's great to have you both here, and really looking forward to kind of going through the content today. Jeff, I think this is your slide. If you want to kind of kickstart the content, great.
Great, thank you, Daisy. I won't read out these quotes to you, but I think the point of these quotes, or what I would say these quotes do, is they sort of emphasize three key points that I want to begin with here. And the first is, the subtext of all of these quotes is that there really is this leadership deficit in development work, right? There's a lot of people that work in the development sector. There's a lot of people that want to get into the development sector. What the development sector actually needs are people that know how to lead in that sector. This isn't to say that there's a lack of people with leadership training around the world. No, there's a lot of those sorts of people with MBAs and other degrees like this. But leadership in the development sector is actually importantly different. And that's exactly what this course is engineered to produce, are people that know how to lead in the development sector, not just who know how to lead very generally or in other sorts of environments. And so it attends to the sensitivities really within the development sector. The other thing that I would say is what this degree really emphasizes, again, are some of, how should I say this, some key insight into how the development sector actually works, right? So this, on the one hand, yes, this program certainly is tailored for people who have experience working in that area. But what it tries to do is actually pull out and run through some of the leadership qualities and leadership scenarios that you're actually likely to encounter as you sort of embark on a career in leadership in the development sector. And then finally, a third thing that I think really comes through in these quotes that I think is important to emphasize is the role of what we sort of call global South perspectives, right? And by this, I mean, if we look historically at the development sector, I think like a lot of sectors, it has a troublesome history in that these are, projects, initiatives, institutions, et cetera, have often been led by certain countries and institutions and individuals that don't necessarily, get a lot of input from countries where development initiatives are carried out. What we really try to address on this program is working to reverse some of these trends by bringing in perspectives from the global South, by understanding the ways that development work requires sort of multilateral cooperation. It involves, sort of constant communication and listening process and feedback from others, and how to work actually in a real sort of a global context. So this is what the program or what the course has really been designed to address. And these are some of the key features that I would say that really come through. And this, frankly, the reason we have these quotes here is because this comes from feedback that we received on what a program like this really needs to address. And so in developing this program over the last several years, these are exactly the sorts of things that we've been very mindful of in designing the curriculum, the individual modules and the subjects themselves, and the material and the ways that the course is actually taught.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll build a little bit on that. So, one of the first questions that we've been asked by colleagues and people in industry and so on when we started to put this course together was, what is so unique about leadership in the development sector, if anything? And this was something that plagued us, and we wanted to put words to that, to try and express what we've sensed through our research and through our practice. And one of the key moments for me was back in 2018, roundabout, when Helen Clark, the previous Prime Minister of New Zealand, joined us in the Institute here in Manchester for a guest lecture about her work. And she's in a fantastic position where she's been in a political leadership role, leading as the President of New Zealand, as the Prime Minister, an executive leadership kind of position that she filled for quite a long time, 11 years. And then she moved over to lead a development agency, UNDP, where the leadership that's been exercised here is quite different. And we ask her, so Helen, what is different between leading as a politician and leading in the development sector? And it was really, really interesting to hear how she explained that as a prime minister, she could instruct certain departments and individuals, ministry secretaries, to carry out certain work, and they would do that, and they would be held accountable, and that's it. But when she moved over to UNDP, all of that changed. It was no longer telling people what to do, but drawing alongside people, having a conversation. And the idea of ideas leadership and team leadership and persuasion came quite strongly through, and she had to really reinvent herself, and she did that brilliantly. And this is a really interesting case to look at how the leadership kind of differ between different sectors. As Jeff indicated earlier, every area has got its own unique quirks, but what are the quirks and the specificities in the development sector? And there's perhaps 5 things that we can briefly point out over here, and this is by no means exhaustive and in no particular order, but one of the key things that I've already mentioned is that often leadership and influencing people, getting people to move together in a certain direction, involves persuasion and not so much the wielding of power, while at the same time it is confronting very strong, well-established power positions of people with very strong self-interest that needs to be confronted, often elites in very difficult contexts. Now, that's one aspect, but we also see quite a bit of distinctiveness around stakeholders. For example, complex stakeholder configurations where we have beneficiaries and governments and private sector organizations and civil society, and we get bilateral and multilateral organizations, all with different objectives and interests and approaches. And leaders within the development sector needs to bring all of that together and wield all of that in a way that deliver development outcomes that are positive and conducive. And then issues around value. Very often in the development sector, there's quite a bit of heart in the job, isn't it? There's quite a bit of a sense of social justice. There's a sense of inter and cross-cultural work. Now, just for leaders, that inter and cross-cultural aspect is quite laden with expectations and skill sets that is not necessarily required within a business or within a public sector environment. Another really important aspect is the kind of problems that the development sector have to deal with, and we can think of these problems as wicked problems, often open-ended, sticky kind of problems that require emotional maturity. And we think of things like climate change, but we also think of human rights abuses. We think of severe hunger. We think of famine and tragedies that hit. We think of inequalities that are really oppressive and depressing. So these kind of problems require a certain skill set and an emotional intelligence and maturity to deal with. And those are another particularly distinctive aspect. There are more. For example, the idea of globalization, where we very much know that there are problems cutting across different contexts and sectors globally, and global influences influence things very much at a local level as well. But we have to be so aware of the local context. So those ideas around globalization, really important for leaders within this particular sector. And there's other ideas, for example, the temporality. Leaders often move around within the sector, so there's adaptability that is so important, and various other aspects. That is, one might not say any one of them are unique to the sector itself, but the combination of those make up quite a distinctive ecosystem that demands of leaders a skill set that so many people that we've been talking to have been disappointed in not being able to get that from a typical MBA, business-oriented, financial-focused, profit-oriented kind of degree, or some other degrees that are just focused on understanding the development context, but not the leadership skills as such. And so together all these form what we would refer to as distinctives of leadership in the development sector. And this is the core of our course and the core of the capacity building opportunities that we co-create with our students on this program of study.
Thank you, Jaco. Thank you, Jeff, for that insight there. Before we go into the course aims and kind of a deep dive into the course units, I would like to just give a really brief course overview of the key elements to the Master of Leadership for Development. You'll see a QR code at the bottom left of your screen. If you scan that, it'll take you to the University of Manchester's webpage, I think, where you can kind of review all of this in detail. So the Master of Leadership for Development is a purely online course. We've designed this to fit around your lifestyle and circumstances. The duration is 24 months and it's part-time, so we deliver it on a part-time basis, hence why it's kind of stretched across those 24 months. This allows you to continue to work alongside studying, so there's no need to take a break from your career. Like I mentioned, and obviously we've got Jeff and Jaco on the call today, this course is delivered in partnership with the University of Melbourne, so you're going to be learning from academics from both institutions, so you really get kind of two for the price of one, if you like. So really you're learning from leading experts in their fields from both the University of Manchester and University of Melbourne. This makes this course very unique in a kind of space where there are many courses that kind of focus on leadership and development, but we are unique in the field because we're offering two perspectives from Melbourne and Manchester throughout your degree and time with us. In terms of workload and what you need to think about kind of commitment wise, we recommend students kind of commit to around 15 hours per week of study. Now, obviously there'll be times where you can't commit to that amount of time, and that's fine. As long as you're kind of doing around 15 hours per week on average, you'll then be successful on the degree program. So it's a big commitment, it's a big chunk of time, but it's going to be worth your while. It's been designed to fit around your lifestyle and circumstances, and it's been designed to kind of help you make a real difference within the development sector, help you progress within your current career, or ultimately help you change careers if that's what you want to achieve. The next enrolment date for the Master of Leadership Development is September 2022. So I am recruiting to this course now. And there's a date on your screen, and it's underlined and in purple, that I want you to kind of think about and keep in the back of your mind. So that's the 23rd of May. And that's when we've got an early application discount deadline. So if you're thinking about kind of pursuing this degree program and you're not sure about your eligibility, or you're not sure how to apply, please get in touch with me from this point onwards. I can then support you in kind of meeting that deadline. It's crucial because it'll allow you to kind of get 10% tuition fee discount off your fees. And the fees on the screen there are 28,164 Australian dollars. So that kind of meeting that discount deadline is going to be crucial, in especially when if you are funding your studies yourself. So this hopefully gives you a kind of top level overview of the course itself. Please feel free to check it out further on our webpage. And without further ado, I'm going to kind of hand it back to Jeff and Yaku to walk you through the course aims and give you a bit of a deep dive into the course units as well.
Great stuff. Jeff, shall I make a start on this for us? So I think there are many things we try to hit with the particular program. We try to create opportunities for growing and development, but perhaps these four would be ones to anchor what we're trying to accomplish over here. And the first one there is that you will learn skills to critically analyze complexities, particularly around institutional structures and power relations. And of course, this is premised on the idea that real change requires shifts and rebalancing of powers and in institutional configurations. So that is the first aim of our course. Jeff, are you good to go with the next one?
Yeah, sure. I think what I would emphasize with the second point here is that obviously on this course, by working with your tutors, by working with others, if that might involve guest speakers or class projects that you're working on, of course, you'll get to know and build your professional development network. I think sort of the side here that I would really emphasize is that your student cohort, your peers, are actually also one of the best networks that you'll build and get to know as a part of this program. And I think that this is something that we can't emphasize enough. I mean, actually, one of the greatest strengths of a program like this is the rapport that you have with your colleagues. I know it's an online course, but actually, you know, our existing course right now, the students are very tight with one another. And this actually builds sort of a lifelong professional development and friend network, frankly, that's useful, not just, again, for sort of finding jobs and building your career, but actually problem solving and sharing information and offering solidarity to one another. So I think that this is another point that we'd really emphasize as a real strength of a course like this one.
Yeah, and I think something that's really important to grasp with what we've come to with this program is that if from here on you will see this, if you look at various other master's courses in this area of development and perhaps leadership, you will note that very often programs sell themselves or present themselves as capacitating you as a leader in a particular area. If it's a development studies, for example, it will indicate that you will become equipped to lead. And in one sense, that is absolutely true, but it's also half of the story. The other half of the story is that you do need to have particular capacity building opportunities to enhance your leadership skills and abilities and understanding, and not just based on your knowledge of the particular domain, such as a specific area in development. So one of our aims, very crucially, is to apply our learning and practical leadership competencies. So in other words, it's not just assumed that you will be able to lead because you know something, but it's practical leadership competencies that are developed, habits. There are elements of reflexivity that's really up front in this course. in the workplace, directly applicable in the workplace. And one of the ways that we accomplish this is through real life scenarios and through global case studies that we are drawing from a broad spectrum of the kind of situations that we've described earlier. And alongside that, we are tapping into the vast networks that we already have between the two institutions, access to organizations worldwide that are working in development. And we are learning some insights from practice, and we are bringing that into the program. So you will hear from and learn from and get perspectives from seasoned leaders and practitioners in the development sector across a range of organizations and contexts, something that would really reinforce the theory and the knowledge that you will gain throughout the course. So that is a key aim of our program. Jeff?
Sure, and I would say finally to round this out, point 4 here, and this frankly, acquiring critical reasoning and analytical expertise, this really sort of brings it full circle back to where Jaco started with institutional structures and power relationships. And what this 4th point really analyzes, and this is, or emphasizes, this is something that I see all the time teaching master students. I've been teaching masters and graduate students now for well over a decade. And I would say this, very often students come into the program and they can read something and they can summarize it and spit it right back at you without any trouble at all. But that doesn't really show any critical reasoning or analytical expertise. This is to say there's no value added in what they're doing. And a big part of a course like this is that it teaches you you learn to develop what we might sort of call a way to add value to these sorts of exercises, right? You learn how to solve problems. You learn how to understand and offer constructive critiques. And when in doing this sort of an exercise, this enables you to, whether you're reading, this is articles for a subject that you're taking, or perhaps this is, reading policy documents and offering feedback to colleagues on a panel that you're working with in let's call it the real world right here. It enables you to add value to these discussions, not simply to repeat what somebody else has said, but actually to take things a step further and to help actually push something productively down the road. And that's what we really try to emphasize, I think, in a lot of the modules and the subjects that we teach. And this is frankly what a number of assessments and other sorts of skills that you'll build on the program really help to develop. So again, this sort of rounds out the real sort of the aims of a course like this one.
Yeah, and guys, if those 4 aims that Jeff and myself outlined now can be seen as something that happens all the time in every interaction, in all the materials, you will see some of those aspects manifest, then turn it 90 degrees and ask ourselves, so what is the course structured like? How is this going to work in practice? And we know you've got access to the various web pages to take a deep dive into the various subjects and so on. So I'm going to give you perhaps a cross-cutting view of a picture, a conceptual view of how things fit together, and then you can go and dive a bit deeper for yourself. So overall, as Daisy explained earlier, the course takes place over a period of 2 years. During those 2 years, you will be studying 6 subjects, or course units as it's called in Manchester, 6 subjects, and a final capstone component, which consists of 2 options that can be followed. Now, these 6 subjects are equal in weight, and they typically are taught in blocks of 3 months or terms, as it were. So in your first year of study, you'll do 4 of them. And in the second year of study, the first 6 months, you'll be doing 2 of those. And then in the last 6 months of your study program, you'll be able to take a deep dive in a dissertation capstone component. How do these subjects fit together? Well, picture in your mind a concentric onion layer model, if you like, where right in the middle, you've got 2 bits that sits there. And these are the 2 knowledge arms of the program. The one knowledge arm, as it were, manifests itself primarily in our first subject that you will do when you get onto the course, is contemporary development, where we look at theory and practice within development sector and bring you up to speed, particularly focused on today. Where are we now and into the future. And our brilliant colleague Rory Stanton is coordinating that with a teaching team, with myself and a colleague Natalie Cunningham as part of that team, looking at various aspects around development today, different theories, different perspectives, different developments and different directions. And then just as the course works, we hand you over to a Melbourne colleague where you will then engage in the other hand knowledge base foundation, which is on the leadership side. And there you will delve into contemporary leadership with colleague Vicky Schubert as the anchor for that particular unit, but also the involvement of other colleagues over time. And there you will really get to grips with where leadership theory came from and where it is today, and the practices around that to understand influence and power and relationships from a foundational perspective. And then Daisy, if we can move to the next one. Now, once that core of this onion ring has been covered, the two knowledge foundations, we wrap it around with a layer called the subject unit 3, leading development. And in that particular unit, we are bringing together the distinctiveness of development as a context and an area for work and practice with leadership theory and practice. And we engage in a particularly case-driven approach to help you to really understand what are the distinctives, how can that be worked out. And this is where you develop the real skills to be able to lead more effectively within development. Then we put another layer. If you want to think about it, those three initial layers are very much focused conceptually and on individual skills and competencies. And then we wrap it around in unit 4 with an organizational focus, with organizational development and change. Here again, colleagues from Melbourne takes the lead, and that particular unit will focus on how the context where leadership and the work of development takes place in the organizational context. So you will be looking at organizational dynamics, teams, leading teams and strategies and successions and performance and the kind of ways in order to improve the organizational side of practicing development. And that's the 4th unit. Daisy, next slide, please. Then we put another layer around all of that, and that's the international management and leadership layer, where colleague Shirley Jenner from Manchester side again is going to help us to lift our eyes to the bigger picture, acknowledging how development has now moved from something perhaps north-south or local to something really connected. So we look there at models of development that are quite distinctive and unique, stretching across regional, local and global boundaries and regions and so on, and looking at corporate social responsibility and value chains and strategy formulation and all those kind of ideas that are beyond the individual organization and the individual person as a leader. Then we move on back to Melbourne to lead us on a very innovative and exciting unit, Unit 6, Leadership Skills in Action, which is something you guys possibly have not experienced before. This is a simulation-based subject where all the previous 5 core foundation materials and content and skills and competencies are brought to bear in various adaptive scenarios that you will be going through to exercise in team format and individual capacity, exercise your leadership competencies, your analytical skills, your critical insights that you've obtained in those first 5 subjects in order to fuse all of them nicely together in a package. And then we reach the final bit, which is the research-based group project or individual dissertation, the capstone component, which is a really important aspect where underlying much of what we do across the program is this idea that we want to help our students to become good at solving problems through research. Research is a skill that's not theoretical, but very, very practical. And in this final capstone, there are these 2 configurations where this is going to be a deep dive for you to attend focus on an area of your interest. This is a flexible element of the program where you can delve into a particular area on development or leadership really deeply that was perhaps not covered that thoroughly, an area that's really relevant to your work, or an area where you want to move into, or a particular sticky problem that you want a multidisciplinary group to help solve and address through the tools of research. And that is the structure. Now, I can just say one element that cuts across all of those 7 components. Well, there's actually 2 elements. The one I mentioned already, research skills, capacity building will happen from the beginning, and every subject you will have a week or so spent particularly on developing those skills. So by the time you reach that capstone, you are very well equipped already. But there's another element that is laced across many of those subjects, and that's the element of digital. And we recognize how the world is increasingly impacted by digital technologies, and including the work of development. So in many of our subjects, we've got focus aspects that ask questions. So what does digital help us with when it comes to development, the good, the bad, and the ugly? How can leadership in a digital world be worked out effectively? And we focus particularly on capacitating you guys to find your way in a digital development world, which again cuts across all those different subjects and components. Thank you, Daisy.
Right. Thank you very much, Jack. Well, I'll pick up on this slide right here. I think, again, here, if we're thinking about how will this course actually help you reach your goals? And here, again, I would sort of emphasize 4 key points. And the first one here, build a professional network. Now, this actually, sort of picks up from something that I discussed a few slides back. And this is, again, sort of the network opportunities at stake here. And if before I talked about, okay, the cohort that you'll be working with, and then of course the people that you'll meet in both in the subjects, the course units that you're taking, as well as guest speakers that might be participating with the material, I would actually also emphasize something kind of structural about this, and this is the benefit of doing a course that is run by 2 different universities, because then you have access to both alumni networks at both universities. You double your capacity in this sense. And this is a unique opportunity, frankly, of a sort of a double degree program like this one. I would also say something else to really sort of emphasize here is how international these networks really are. These aren't just sort of country based. I mean, it's in linking together, bringing together 2 universities that are frankly on opposite ends of the world right now. I know this. It's the end of the day here in Melbourne. It's the beginning of the morning there in the UK. What this really helps to do is extend and build out and internationalize the networks that you have access to. And so again, this is an important point. I think that it's worth reiterating. Another point that I would say here, the second one here, is just, how much, when we talk about sort of gaining a broader perspective, yes, you will gain a broader perspective through the work that you do, through the readings that you have in class, the exercises and the assessments, and through your tutors. A major part of this too is the perspective, actually, I think that's also offered by your colleagues on the course, and the ways that it's such an important and a valuable resource that's built into this program is kind of the international and broad experience of different students on the course itself. So this is something else. I mean, I appreciate that every course, of course, has a number of different students on it, and you can learn from those students. But really emphasize here is that your colleagues on this course will come from continents all over the world. I'm just saying other countries, right? This is all around the world, and in learning to work with them to balance different time zones and to collaborate on different group projects. It's not just building a network here. These are exact sorts of skills that you'll need for leadership in development going forward. So again, this is what I mean about these sorts of elements being built into the program. The third point here actually speaks a little bit to this graphic that you'll see on the right of the top 5 hardest to find soft skills. I think this was a poll that was actually put together by DevX. If you're familiar with DevX, it's one of the best sort of development focused resources available online. And what they tried to poll here was, basically what are we lacking? What do we need in the development sector? And as you can see, overwhelmingly, the answer here was we need leadership planning, we need strategy, we need coaching, we need people who know how to lead in this sector. And again, this is what I would say is important about a program like this one, is that it doesn't just teach you development, right? I mean, I teach on, or I'm the director of a master's in development studies. And I can tell you that this program, Leadership and Development, is really very different from that one, in that it's not just sort of about the academic debates in development. This one is very much about how to lead in this sector, sort of very practice focused. And again, I think this is important for people that actually want to do this work, particularly in a leadership capacity. And then finally, this one is, again, this sort of goes back to actually what Jaco was talking about on the last slide here, applying your skills in real life scenarios through our simulation platform. And this speaks directly to, what is it? It's Unit 6, actually, that Jaco was talking about. Frankly, I think that, these sorts of exercises are built into all of the subjects of the course units across the program. But let's say, particularly Unit 6, I think, is a great example of this. This is leadership skills in action, where it actually, it's across different modules in this subject. You actually work through, you practice out. In some sense, this is sort of like role playing, where this is actually sort of imagining how this would actually work in the real world. There's a lot of this sort of component actually built into the program and into specific course units or subjects themselves. And so again, I think this is something that, how should I say this? It doesn't just distinguish a program like this. There's no textbook for a course like this, right? We sort of had to invent this and design this as we go, constantly asking ourselves, okay, what's actually necessary in this sector? What do people need to know? And how can we produce the content that will help people get from point A right here to point B, where they're actually capable of doing this work? And I think that's exactly what this sort of a point actually really speaks to.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Jaco. So you probably and hopefully sat there listening to this session thinking, I want to become part of the Master of Leadership for Development with the University of Manchester and with the University of Melbourne. If that's the case, then you would become part of a very interesting and intelligent student community. So I wanted to just give some insight into our current students and current student community. We've got a truly global community. Jeff's obviously already touched on a few points, which is great. We have students currently based in 7 different countries. So what that means for our students is you're not only going to be learning from our fantastic academic teams in Manchester and Melbourne, but you're going to be learning from each other. So we really encourage our students to be collaborative. We encourage them to share their perspectives with one another, but also with our academic team as well. We believe that by sharing personal experiences, knowledge, and sharing journeys is crucial to your learning, and it really ultimately helps you build that lifelong network that Jeff talked about earlier on in today's presentation. You can see a QR code at the bottom left of your screen. If you scan that, it'll take you to a recent webinar with 2 of our current students, which is really insightful. You'll learn about their journey. You'll learn about their motivations for wanting to study on the Master of Leadership for Development, and you'll hear about how they're getting on with their studies. So I'd encourage you to kind of scan that code and watch that session back if you're wanting to get more of an insight into our students. We've got students from various different ages, ranging from 25 years old right up to 54 years old. So again, you're getting that range of experiences and knowledge throughout your kind of your course and throughout the discussions that you'll have with your students and fellow classmates. We've got a variety of different students, like I mentioned, kind of professionals who are looking to advance in their current careers, but we've also got students who are looking for a career change, who have embarked on this journey with us. Again, the majority, well, I'd say 100% of our current students are looking to build their network and make a real difference within the development sector. You might be thinking, well, how on earth can I build a network with it being an online course? And that's a really good question. But what I would say is we have so many different platforms where you can connect with your peers and you can connect with your academic faculty and support staff. And we really encourage our students to do that. And they actively are discussing topics, discussing experiences, discussing their journeys with one another. in relation to the different units that we're teaching. So yes, it's an online degree program. Yes, you can complete it kind of sat in your desk in Botswana, or in Melbourne, or in the UK, or in Europe, but you're going to have that opportunity to kind of network and build lifelong relationships with people who are based in varying different countries and continents to you. Again, we've got working professionals from a range of industries and who have very, very different academic qualifications. If you're sat there thinking, well, I'm not sure if I am eligible, I'm from kind of this industry, or I've got a geography background or a history background, and you're kind of sat there thinking, I'm unsure about whether or not this is for me, this is really where I come into play. So all of the students who are currently on our degree program at the moment and currently studying with us all spoke to me when they were thinking about kind of embarking on this journey. My role is to really support you in understanding the course, understanding how you fit into this student community, and help you really take those next steps. So share your CV with me, let's get on a call and let's delve into your background in more detail, and I can then support you in hopefully becoming part of a fantastic student community. I just wanted to finish with a slide with my contact details on. So again, just to reiterate, please do get in touch with me. Let's kind of arrange that call before the early application discount deadline, and let's get you on the course and get you part of our fantastic intelligent student community that we have here. Jaco, Jeff, I'm not sure if you wanted to kind of say anything before we close today's session.
No, I think it's, again, I would just emphasize that, you know, if you have questions, that's what we're here for, and we'd invite you to reach out, and again to thank everybody for being a part of this.
Yeah, same from my side. Thank you everyone for connecting, taking time to listen through this, and I hope you can sense that this is not just another teaching engagement for us. This is what a colleague recently referred to as a passion project, and this is something that we really hope, and we can see already with our students how their lives and their professional careers are impacted by spending time on this important area of leadership within the development sector. And it will be such a joy and privilege to welcome you onto the course in the near future, and looking forward to answering any questions, get onto calls and chat you through various ideas and questions, considerations that you may have if you feel you would benefit from that. Door is open, and Jay-Z is your way to connect with us. Thank you so much, and hope to meet you soon.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jaco, for being a part of today's session. I have put a QR code if you're sat there and ready to apply. You can scan that and it'll take you to our Melbourne course page where you can start that process. Thank you all for listening today, and we hope to hear from you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, bye.